Raja Reddy, Professor Singh, Dr. Nagaswamy, Dr. Krishnamurthy, Dr. Satyamurthy, and delegates to the conference. It gives me indeed very great pleasure to be in your midst this morning and to inaugurate the 98th conference of the Numismatic Society of India. I am not a historian by training, even though the discipline of economics to which I belong is closely associated with history. Economic history is an integral part of the study of economics. Numismatics, as I understand, is a study of coins as historical evidence. The study of coins throws light, particularly on periods where there is no recorded history. That is true of very much of ancient India. History has to be built up based upon the inscriptions in stone or sometimes on metal plates, but also from what we can glean from the coins. The coins tell us many things. They tell about the king who issued the coins, the dynasty to which he belonged, the faith to which he belonged, and the symbols on the coins again give us some information about the period. But the coins also reveal something else. They reveal the development of the society. They give us some idea of the metallurgical knowledge of the people at that particular time. Their skill in minting. All of this are reflected from the coins. And a careful study of the coins also reveals the trading pattern, and I understand that from the discovery of Roman coins in India, I particularly find both Satyamurthy, Dr. Satyamurthy and Dr. Krishnamurthy have done some work in this area, reveals the maritime pattern of the country, the kind of trade that might have existed through that period, in that period. So there is a lot that one can learn from the study of coins. But anyway, as I said, I'm not a student of numismatics. However, as Satyamurthy mentioned, as the head of the central bank of the country, I had to be associated with the design or fixing the denomination of the coins in our country during the period of 92 to 97. Today, coins are used as a medium of exchange for smaller denominations. And there was a time when the coin supply in this country became so limited that we had to import coins also at one time. But now that situation is gone, and I think the coins are minted in our government factories. Actually, there is a division of responsibility between the Reserve Bank and the government. While the Reserve Bank of India issues the currency notes, the coins are still issued by or minted by the government. But then they are distributed through the Reserve Bank and through the commercial banks. I cannot talk much about numismatics to you today because I am not trained in that particular field. But I thought I will take the occasion to say a few words on how coin evolved as money over history over the long period of time. In fact, if you look at the history of mankind, for a very, very long time, money was not there. The system of exchange that existed prior to the introduction of money is what we call the barter, the exchange of one good for another good. And that perhaps still exists in some parts of the country or in some areas. When the laborer works in the farm, he is paid in terms of the grain or in terms of whatever is being produced in the farm. So this was what was called the barter, exchange of one good for another good. And that existed for a very long time. But then there were problems in continuing with barter. Because if there has to be an exchange of goods between A and B, A must have what B wants and B must have what A wants. Then only an exchange between A and B will be possible. This is what we call double coincidence of wants. In the absence of double coincidence of wants, then you will have to find a third person who may have something which the other fellow likes, and therefore there could be an exchange. But that would become even more difficult. So as the number of goods to be exchanged increased, then the barter system began to give away. It could not cope with it. But as I said, it continued for a very long period in history. That the major method of exchange was only between one good with another good. And that also fitted in with a society which was essentially local in character. When you want to exchange goods with somebody far away and so on and so forth, then it becomes more difficult. Therefore, the problem of the barter giving way to the induction of something which can serve as a medium of exchange came at a point in time in history when the number of commodities to be exchanged became much larger and the number of people within whom the exchanges to be given was much larger, and when the markets expanded from local to the national to the international level. That is when the barter system really broke down. Then they had to introduce one common medium of exchange. That is, instead of exchanging one commodity for another commodity, everybody exchanged the commodity that he had with another thing which served as a medium of exchange, and that could be utilized by somebody else to buy something else. So that is the way in which the medium of exchange emerged. But even at that point, the coin did not emerge. Originally, the medium of exchange in many countries varied from shell to cow to cattle to many other things. In fact, salt was also at one time a medium of exchange in many countries. Therefore, the induction of coin came at a later time. Look at the word pecuniary. The word pecuniary means financial, but the word pecuniary is derived from the Latin root pecus, which means ox or cow. Therefore, cattle, for example, served as a medium of exchange for a very long time also. But then there is a problem with introducing, let us say, cattle as a medium of exchange. Now, one goat is not the same as another goat, or one cow is not the same as another cow. And another thing is the indivisibility. Now, cow, if it becomes medium of exchange, now it is such a big animal And when you want to exchange something which is much smaller in value, you cannot have half a cow. So there's a problem. Therefore, sooner or later, they try to find out something which has certain characteristics. The characteristics that emerged was that it must be valuable, it must be portable, and it can be capable of division. So all these were the characteristics which came to be attached to the medium of exchange. There's an old couplet about money which says, money is a matter of functions for a medium, a measure, a standard, and a store. So anything that should serve as a medium of exchange should have 4 characteristics. It should be a medium. A medium means medium of exchange. Everything should be exchanged for that, and that can be exchanged for any other commodity that you look. A medium. A measure and a standard. That is, it is not enough to have something which is, let's say, shell or something. It must have a certain value and it must have a certain standard. Then only you can see how many of that particular medium of exchange is equivalent to a particular commodity. So it is a measure or a standard. And third and the fourth characteristic is it must have what we call a store of value. That is, it is something that can be stored, because wealth is stored in the form of money, or money is stored in the form to serve as wealth, and therefore whatever you choose as a medium of exchange can be stored. So that must be convenient for it. Therefore, it is only that which performs, let us say, the function of medium of exchange, a measure or a standard, and the store of value became the most appropriate thing to serve as money. It is at this particular point the coins came in the evolution of money. Because when we teach money and finance, we talk about how money came, because I will come presently how the currency came. The currency became a substitute for coin at a later time in the evolution. But the coins became very convenient as medium of exchange and as a store of value and as a standard. I think that is how metallic coins came into being. Now, as one of the writers used to say, if you look at all coins, they are usually round and they are usually flat. And somebody said it satisfies the 2 conditions of medium of exchange and store of value. It is round so that it can circulate, and it is flat so that it can be stored. So that is the 2 important characteristics of money which fitted into the coin. But then the question that arose was, what metal to choose as a coin? I mean, all of you know there are gold coins, there are silver coins, and there are copper coins. Nowadays there is an alloy and so on and so forth of various things. So the choice of the metal which can serve as the medium of exchange became an issue. At least in the Western countries, it started with actually gold. Even though in some other countries silver is primarily the coin. Do you know in French language, even today, the word for silver and the word for money is the same. And even there is a common expression, have you sold your soul for the silver? Because that again, silver stands for money. So in many countries, silver was also used, but gold became a usual metal for coinage. But the problem with gold as a coin was that it is so valuable that for small denominations it becomes difficult to use gold. And that is why when gold coins were introduced, there are also silver coins that came into place, and for smaller denominations other metals were used. So it is the value of the metal that determined the denomination of the coin. Therefore, you found gold coins being utilized for high value transactions, and also silver to that extent, and the other metals being used for smaller denominations. But there is a problem with this. When gold coins are in circulation and silver coins are also in circulation, there is a certain relationship between gold and silver. If in the market the ratio of price between gold and silver changes, then it introduces some distortions in the value of the coin. This is known in the history of coinage as bimetallism. In India we had it in the 18th century. We had bimetallism. And bimetallism meant both the use of gold and silver. That functioned well so long as the ratio between the price of gold and silver did not change very much. But once the ratio of price between gold and silver changed, then it had an effect upon the coin also. So, when coins were in circulation, they were also valued at level. Therefore, the value of the coin was also equal to the value of the metal in that coin. This is what we call in our the study of monetary economics, full-bodied money. The full-bodied money is that money or that coin whose intrinsic value is equal to its denominated value. And that is where gold became extremely useful, that the gold or silver as a metal can be melted and it can be sold and utilized elsewhere. And therefore the value of gold and the value of silver is known, and the coin must be denominated, or the denomination of the coin must be equal to the value of the gold. And that is why what happened was that in many, that are particularly in Europe, the coin minted by one country was in circulation not only in that country but outside the country also. The Maria Theresa gold coin, Maria Theresa was the Queen of Austria, and the full-bodied gold coin of Maria Theresa was used not only in Australia but throughout Europe, because the intrinsic value of that coin was equal to the value of the gold, and nobody thought that they were losing anything as a consequence of that. Therefore, that is how gold coins became very popular. But then, some clever kings thought that why not make some money out of it by what they call clipping the value of the coin. That is, the gold content got to be reduced. So even though its value or denominated at a higher value, but the gold content became less than that. So what happened at that time? In Queen Elizabeth's time, or no, earlier, it's a Tudor king, but not Queen Elizabeth, her predecessor. What he did was to clip the gold coin, and both gold coins of full value as well as the clipped coins were in circulation. Then after a time, what happened was all the gold coins disappeared, only the clipped coins were in circulation. Queen Elizabeth asked her minister, advisor, as to why this is happening. So this is known as a famous Gresham's law. The Gresham's law says bad money drives good money out of circulation. Because what happens is that whoever has got the full value of the gold will keep it for him and will not circulate it. And only the bad money was circulating. But sooner or later, we moved from what we call full-bodied money to what is called the token money. That no longer was the intrinsic value equal to the denominated value. And that is a big transition as far as the evolution of money is concerned. And finally, we reached a point of paper currency. The paper on which it is printed is not even worth anything at all. And its value is 100 rupees or 1000 rupees or even more. So that is the shift that occurred. But that shift also did not occur very easily, because when the paper currency was first introduced, people said, what is it backed up by? And therefore in England, for example, it was called the fixed fiduciary system, under which up to a certain amount paper currency was issued without any backing. But beyond that, every pound that was issued was backed up by an equivalent amount of gold in the treasury. Therefore, they could not issue more notes in circulation unless it is backed up by gold. In India, in 1935, when the Reserve Bank of India was set up, we had a system what is called proportional reserve system. Under the proportional reserve system, 35% of the currency issued must be backed up by gold. So that is a proportional reserve system. But even that was given up after some time, and we got into a situation of what we call, they found out how much gold Reserve Bank of India has got, and they said that much gold is enough, you can issue any amount of notes. So the question all arises, now what is the credibility of the paper? The credibility of the paper depends purely upon the ability of the central bank or the government to ensure that that paper is universally acceptable. So today the definition for money is what is generally acceptable as a medium of exchange. Originally, the general acceptability of the medium exchange was dependent upon the metallic content and the value of the metal. So, but that really gave way to token money initially, and then finally to the paper currency. Actually, the currency notes are issued by the Reserve Bank of India. The currency issued by the Reserve Bank of India is the liability of the Reserve Bank of India. After all, if there is a balance sheet, if there is a liability, there must be an asset, because both sides must balance. So there is an interesting piece of dialogue which one of the authors had put, asking that Socrates comes down on earth and walks along, and he picks up on a piece of paper on the road, and that's a currency note. And it says, I promise to pay the bearer a sum of X amount of money. So this fellow says he promises to pay the bearer a certain sum of money. What will he give? So he said, if you go and give a 100 rupee note, he may give you 10 rupee notes. That is a promise to pay. Then he says, do you believe this promise? Then he says, well, this promise is backed up. He said, it is backed up by what? Because the bulk of the assets of the Reserve Bank of India are government securities. So he says, it is backed up by what? It is backed up by government securities. Then he picks up a government security, and what does that say? It says the government of India says, I promise to pay the bearer an amount of money when on a due date. So he says, what is this? You give a promise, you say this promise is backed up. This promise is backed up by another promise. Now, do you believe all of that? Now, that is the whole substance of it. If you believe it, it is money. If you don't believe it, it is not money. So that is why money, as I said, has to have universal acceptability. For example, in Germany, after the end of the First World War, what happened? The inflation rose so much, as people said, that people were always found to be running because they thought that the value of the currency will change by the time they reach the place. So that is the rate at which the money was depreciating in its value. Then it ceases to be acceptable. So today, the responsibility of the Reserve Bank and the government is to ensure that the amount of money that is issued is considered to be appropriate by the people, and the people are willing to accept it. So that, I think, is the evolution of money. I thought, since I do not know much more about numismatics, I thought I will tell you a little bit about the story of money as it evolved as a medium of exchange. I will only say that in conclusion, many raise the question about the larger issue about the study of history itself. Is it at all meaningful? Is it at all useful? As I would say, history is the collective memory of the country. Just as an individual needs to know about his past in order to function better today, the nation also needs to know its past in order to be able to perform well. There is a usual saying that those who do not know history are condemned to repeat it. But there is a famous statement from philosopher Santayana who said that those who know history are also condemned to repeat it. Because all of us know history and mistakes continue to be made, but that is essentially because of the events are not identical, but human situations now are never similar. Nevertheless, as individuals profit by experience, so do nations. For this, we need to learn about the past, but as I always said, we should not become prisoners of history. And there is no need to commend everything that has happened in the past. I always felt golden age is an aspiration rather than a reality. So with all the qualifications, history can be a good teacher if you wish to draw appropriate lessons. In extracting information about the past, numismatics plays an important role, and I commend all your scholarly efforts, and I wish the conference all success. Thank you. Thanks.